Today I want to show you a smarter way to figure out when you'll reach financial independence. Not just a vague estimate, but a clear roadmap that adapts to your life and your choices. Because it's not just about how much you save or how much you earn. It's about how you make a few key decisions across 5 overlooked areas that can potentially move your financial freedom timeline forward by years. And that's not just theory, but practice. Most online calculators use a very basic formula. Just take 25 times your annual expenses and you're good. But that's like planning a cross-country road trip with just a ruler and a compass. It just misses the reality of road conditions, fuel stops, and just better routes. What if your expenses change dramatically over time? What if you move to a cheaper country? And what if you don't want to stop working entirely, you just don't want to need to anymore? That's why I developed what I call the financial independence matrix. It's a framework that accounts for real-world complexity and gives you more control over your timeline. So in this video, I'll walk you through each of the 5 dimensions, and you will not only learn how to calculate your financial independence trajectory, but you'll learn how to change it as well. Let's start by completely reframing the way you think about the path to financial independence. Most people use a very simple 2-variable model: savings rate and investment returns. But that's like trying to do a weather forecast with only the temperature and the wind speed. It ignores one of the most critical variables: how your spending changes over time. The third and very critical variable I want you to include is expense elasticity, which is how your spending is likely to change over time based on stuff like life events, lifestyle decisions, location changes, or inflation. Even if your expenses seem stable today, in 20 or 30 years, those grocery bills, healthcare, and housing costs could be significantly more expensive. So let's build your 3-dimensional model properly. Step 1 is to estimate the expenses you will have when you've reached your financial freedom. And this is what most calculations miss: how much your expenses will change over time. Will your housing costs drop when you pay off your mortgage or move? Will childcare or education expenses disappear as kids grow up? Will healthcare costs go up as you age? And will you move to a cheaper country or city? I like to create 3 basic projections: one optimistic, one base case, and one conservative. Let's say someone spends $80,000 a year now, but when their kids leave home, that drops to $60,000. That single change shrinks their FI, their financial independence number, by a 6-figure amount. And that's not a small detail, that is years of extra freedom. So step 2 is now taking these yearly expenses of, in this case, $60,000 and adjust this number, accounting for inflation. Assume a long-term average inflation rate of 2.5%, which is pretty close to historical averages in developed countries. Over 20 years, which is when you'll hopefully be well into your financial independence, that $60,000 lifestyle would cost $98,000 per year. So then you take these annual expenses of $98,000, you multiply them by 25, and you'll see that you will need $2.45 million in future dollars. In case you're wondering why we're multiplying that number by 25, that's because we assume that you can take out 4% after taxes, and 1 divided by 25 is 4% of your investments on average to cover living expenses without reducing your net worth, and thus be able to theoretically live on those investments forever. Step 3 is to then calculate your exact financial independence date. Let's say you save $30,000 per year, you expect a 7% annual return on your investment, and you start with $0 invested. We'll now calculate how long it'll take you to reach your target using the future value of an annuity formula. And before I show you the formula, I know it looks really scary, but please hear me out. This formula helps us if we want to know how long it'll take us to save those $2.45 million. And in case you have no idea how to calculate that with your own numbers, just screenshot the video, upload that screenshot to ChatGPT, and tell it your own numbers. It'll solve it for you, no need to panic, it is way easier than it looks. So with annual savings of $30,000, you will need roughly 24 years to reach your financial independence if you want to sustain a $60,000 lifestyle. So this was an intense first chapter, but I promise from now on, it's going to be just as easy as usual. If there's one lever in your financial independence journey that is both underused and extremely powerful, it's this one: where you live. This is called geographic arbitrage, earning in a high-income environment while spending in a lower-cost one. And thanks to remote work, international mobility, and digital infrastructure, this strategy is more accessible than ever before. Here's why it matters. If inflation raises your cost of living over time, moving to a place with lower inflation or lower baseline prices can not only protect your purchasing power, it can also shrink your FI number and accelerate your timeline. If you're saving for a $1.5 million portfolio in Germany or the US, but your living costs drop by 40% because you relocate to Thailand or rural Portugal, your new target might only need to be $900,000, or maybe even less if inflation is also slower. And that is not a small difference, that is years off your journey. So let's walk you through a practical example. Let's say you're currently making $120,000 per year remotely, living in San Francisco, spending $90,000 per year and saving $30,000. If you're aiming for $90,000 times 25, that's $2.25 million, you'll need about 23 years at that savings rate and a 7% investment return. Now let's say you keep that job, but you move to a cheaper city like Lisbon, Chiang Mai, or a mid-sized European city where your living costs with the same lifestyle drop to around $50,000 $20,000 per year, that brings your new FI number down to $1.25 million. And with the same $120,000 income, you're now saving $70,000 per year and spend 30. So plug that into our formula from chapter 1 and you just went from 23 years to 13. That's an entire decade shaved off just by changing your zip code. And no, this doesn't only apply internationally. Look at moving from New York to North Carolina or leaving Paris for the countryside. But yeah, of course, choosing Dubai or the UAE where personal income tax is 0% is a massive boost for high earners. But even smaller changes like relocating to a neighboring city with cheaper rent can knock a few years off your journey. Most people approach financial independence with a one-size-fits-all strategy. Same investment approach, same saving habits, same rules from start to finish. But the truth is, your strategy should evolve as you go. Your financial game plan needs to adjust based on where you are on your way to freedom. So let's walk through the 4 phases with examples so you can see exactly where you are and how to move faster. Phase 1 is foundation. Your primary goal should be to build momentum and your main focus to increase your income. At this stage, your biggest asset is your earning potential. The most effective way to accelerate is to learn high-income skills, switch jobs if needed, start a side hustle, and invest in education. It's also the phase where your investments matter the least. Why? Because the compounding curve is still flat. A 10% return on $10,000 is only $1,000. Focus your energy on increasing what you can control, your income and your savings rate. This is also where you can lay your tax foundation, opening IRAs, setting up investment accounts, and also avoid lifestyle creep. The second phase is acceleration. Your primary goal should be to maximize your savings rate, and your focus should be to reduce expenses and optimize taxes. Now that your income is solid and you've built habits, it's time to go on offense. House hack, co-live, or relocate to save on housing. Stack tax advantage accounts like IRAs, 401ks, or local equivalents. Eliminate high interest debt and track every dollar and optimize your spending. This is also a great time to experiment with geographic arbitrage, even temporarily, to boost your savings rate into the 40 to 60% or more range. Remember, at this stage, your savings rate has a much higher impact than your investment returns, but you're now shaping the trajectory of your wealth curve. Phase 3 is momentum. Your primary goal is to maximize returns without unnecessary risk, and your focus should be to streamline your portfolio and build passive income. At this point, you're halfway there and your investments finally start doing the heavy lifting. So here's what to focus on. Simplify your investment portfolio. Ensure asset location is tax efficient. Start testing out semi-passive income streams like real estate, online content, or part-time consulting, and consider Coast FI, where you stop saving aggressively because compound interest can take you the rest of the way. Many people also start shifting their priorities at this stage, taking a lower stress job, work only part-time, or experiment with the lifestyle changes. And the fourth and final phase is transition. The primary goal now is to manage risk and practice the lifestyle. Main focus should be to prepare for the shift from accumulation to distribution. So now you're nearly there. Now it's time to stress test your plan. Try a practice retirement. Live on your projected FI budget for a few months. Reduce volatility by slightly lowering equity exposure. Think about healthcare, currency exposure if you're abroad, and backup income streams. Also try to build a transition fund to cover early retirement, years before accessing retirement accounts. And this is also the stage to reflect. What does your ideal day look like? What's the first thing you'd stop doing if you didn't have to earn money? Too many people follow the same strategy from start to finish, and it costs them time and clarity. The phase-based model helps you focus on what matters most right now. Stop worrying about advanced strategies when you're just starting out, and adapt your plan as your income, location, and lifestyle evolve. By recognizing which phase you're in, you're not just more efficient, you're also more motivated because you're not trying to sprint a marathon. You're running each leg with the right mindset, tools, and pace. And speaking of pace, the next chapter is where your timeline can really shift, because it's no longer about your portfolio, it's about how many income engines you build along the way. When most people think about financial independence, they picture a giant investment portfolio, big enough to generate enough passive income to cover all living expenses through the 4% rule. But this single source strategy can actually make the path longer, and also more fragile and more stressful than it needs to be. One of the most underrated accelerators on the path to financial independence is income diversification. When you combine multiple smaller income sources, the amount you need to save and the time it takes to get there shrinks dramatically. Let's say your ideal financial independence number is $1.5 million, based on a $60,000 annual lifestyle. At a 4% withdrawal rate, that gives you your target. But what if you don't need the full $60,000 to come from investments? Imagine this instead. You have $750,000 invested, which gives you $30,000 per year in passive income. You own a small rental property that brings $10,000 per year in profit, and you run a freelance side hustle or passion project that brings in $20,000 per year on your terms. That totals the same $60,000 per year, but your portfolio only needs to cover half of it. Now, instead of having to save $1.5 million, $750,000 is already enough enough. And depending on your savings rate, that could cut 5 to 10 years off your journey. And the best part is that many of these additional income sources like content creation, consulting, or real estate can be designed around your interests, giving you more autonomy without you feeling like you're still working. So there you have it, a more complete and more flexible way to calculate and accelerate your financial independence date. So let's recap what we've uncovered today. Number one, the three-dimensional FI calculation, which goes beyond simple math and includes your future expense, elasticity, and inflation. Number two, the geographic arbitrage multiplier, where adjusting where you live can speed up your timeline by years without cutting back on lifestyle. Number three, the phase-based optimization model, which helps you match the right strategy to the right point in your journey. And number four, the income source diversification factor, showing you how adding even small income streams can massively reduce your portfolio needs. What this framework really gives you is clarity. Instead of chasing an arbitrary retire by 40 goal, you're building a roadmap that's personal, practical, and dynamic. And remember, financial independence isn't just about quitting your job, it's about having options. It's about waking up and doing what you want, not what you have to do. Whether that means moving to Portugal, starting your own business, or just saying no to a burnout. That freedom is the real goal. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.